Hi students, my name is Elena Koch. I'm your professor for English 275, Literature, Gender, and Identity. And I'm really excited about teaching this class. This is a brand new class at Prairie State. It's a class that I've worked really hard to develop. We're going to be reading some really great texts and hopefully having some fabulous discussions too. I'm sad that we don't get to meet in person this week because of this storm, but I wanted to use this video to introduce you to some of the to the course and talk about some of the things we'd be talking about if we were having class. So first of all, English 275 is a survey course, meant that it's meant to cover a lot of material in a relatively short amount of time. It's also a hybrid class, as you know, meaning that 50% of our instruction is online in videos like this and in D2L discussions, and the other 50% is in person. So we're combining the best of both ways of learning here. And it's also a late start class, meaning that we have only 14 weeks, but 16 weeks worth of material. I think that's going to be fine. I think that 14 weeks works well for this class. Here we go. Course objectives. These are in the syllabus, and I just wanted to go over them really quickly. First of all, because this is a literature course, one of the objectives this semester will be to demonstrate that you can analyze and interpret literature. That's something that you've probably had a lot of practice in previous classes, and something we can continue working on this semester. And also develop familiarity with a variety of literary genres. In other words, kinds of literature. We'll be reading 2 novels, a play, excerpts from a couple slave narratives, and a bunch of short fiction and poetry. So that's a lot of stuff. Also by about 35 different authors. So again, that survey course where we cover a lot of material. It's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to read. So as I get ready to project to this next slide here, there we go. The next set of course objectives are all related to the ideas of gender and identity, the topic of this literature course. So first, appreciate the range of literary depictions of gendered experiences and how those experiences are shaped by race and class. There's a lot to unpack there that we'll talk about more in the coming weeks. But really, how do authors write about gender roles and expectations? And how do we understand that people of different races and different socioeconomic classes don't experience these gender roles in the same ways? This covers a wide variety of parts of our lives, right? Maybe all parts of our lives. And this brings us to also LGBTQ identities. So in the second half of the semester, we'll be reading works by authors who are LGBTQ and or about characters who are LGBTQ. This is an important time to be doing that. If you follow the news, you know that in some states, these kinds of books are being pulled from school curricula, from libraries, both public and school libraries. So this course will be a way to affirm those identities and look at how depictions of gender happen in their literature. We're also going to look at the cultural production of gender roles and expectations, meaning that we're going to ask, where do these ideas about gender come from? And finally, we're going to look at how gender has shaped literary production. In other words, who writes, who gets published, and also reception. In other words, how critics and audiences react to the writing of men and women and non-binary writers. I want to think about this concept of the literary canon, which is literary works that are widely considered to be excellent. So when you think about all the authors who come to mind when you think about who an English major should read, or what an English professor like me should know about, the chances are we're thinking about the literary canon. To demonstrate this, I want to look at this image here of a deck of cards that I purchased on a family vacation a few years ago. The deck of cards was called something like Classic Literary Authors. And if you look at these authors, you're going to notice a pattern in who they are, right? These are some really fantastic authors. They include boy, I'm suddenly drawing a blank. Walt Whitman, who is one of my favorite poets. We'll study him this semester. Also, some wonderful authors like Henry James and F. Scott Fitzgerald. You might have read The Great Gatsby in high school. Some really great authors, right? But notice how the vast majority of these authors are dead white men. Again, really important authors. This is not a criticism of that identity at all. But notice there's just a little bit of room for a woman, a little bit of room for a person of color, and the rest is the white guys. Why is this? Why have we traditionally thought about our literature in this way? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the canon. We're going to talk about who got left out and why, and what this has to do with gender. It also has to do with race and class. How are ideas about excellence related to how we think about gender? For example, the ideas about male superiority, intellectual superiority that have held power over much of our history. That's changing. But if we thought that women were inferior, then why would people want to publish their literature? Also, access to education and the resources needed to write, these are relevant as well. And then finally, the subject matter. What's considered excellent, right? You might think a movie about a space encounter is excellent, and somebody might think that that's silly, right? So who gets to decide what's excellent? Okay. I also want to just mention this content warning that's also in the syllabus. The material that we're going to be discussing is often adult level material. This is a course designed for adult readers, and most of the literature we're reading is also written for adult audiences. So that means in some cases the material is going to be rated PG-13 or more. We'll, of course, treat this material with the maturity that comes with a college writing class. There's also some challenging ideas like suicide and abuse. And so if you're worried about reading that, please feel free to have a confidential conversation with me. I would be happy to talk about your concerns. Routine and workload. So like most classes of this level, you will be working about 10 to 14 hours a week. That includes class time. Each week, there's going to be a lot of reading. Before you come to class on Wednesdays, you'll be reading. On Wednesdays, when you come to class, we'll do a quick write about your reactions for maybe 5-10 minutes. And then we're going to spend most of our class time discussing. And I'll be really eager to hear what you think about the literature. If you're a quiet person, you can sit back and listen. But I'm hoping to hear from everybody. And then we'll read more because on Saturdays, that's when you'll do the online assignments, posting and discussions and replying to a classmate. I will also be posting and discussions, so you'll be expected to read that material. There might be an occasional video too. In addition to those regular weekly tasks, there will be 4 response papers this semester, just 1-page responses, and 5 will be assigned, but you get to pick which 4 that you want to do. And you'll pick one of those to expand at the end of the semester. There's a lot going on at the end of the semester, so when it comes to choosing your responses, you might want to do the first 4. The final exam will be open book and take home. Okay. So let's talk about some basic tips on how to succeed. Each week in D2L, there will be an overview for you to read that will explain in detail what the week's tasks are. So that's where you should start. When you read, don't rush through your reading. Leave time to read thoroughly and slowly. Communicate with me and with your classmates, and take our discussion seriously. And then finally, there are resources in D2L that I'd like you to use, and there'll be more about that later. You'll want to check into D2L a couple times a week at least. Okay, so we still find ourselves in this pandemic, right? And so I just want to reiterate a few things that I am trying to build into the class in case there are bumps in the road. First of all, make sure you ask for help when you have questions. Make sure you stay in touch and ask for extensions if you need to in advance, okay? So there'll be some flexibility for you. Remember, the 2 lowest quick write grades and the 2 lowest discussion grades will be dropped. So if you have a bad week, that's okay. You could have 2 bad weeks. You might want to look at the schedule and make strategic decisions about which 2 you want to skip, or save them in case you get sick or get behind. Hopefully everything will go smoothly, but there's this built-in cushion, okay? For the essay, for the informal writing, we'll be doing credit and partial credit grading. So if it looks like you're making an honest effort and meeting the requirements, you'll get full credit. Again, you'll have lots more details about this. This is just a quick overview. If you've been on campus lately, you know about all the safety precautions Prairie State has been taking. I'm really grateful to work at a place that takes our safety seriously. So we'll continue to do those things. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to say for now. What I'd like you to do is go into D2L and look at the course syllabus and look at the weekly overview and let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm available to help. I'll be checking my email a lot over the next few days until our first class on Wednesday. And I'll be eager to answer any questions and get going on our discussions with the great literature. Okay, so everything you should need to know is in D2L. Again, have fun with the reading, and I will see you in person, I hope, next week. Stay safe.